1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 1.
c'est écart, non?
Ah
bah allez, on commence. Allez. Non, non. Alors, bonjour. Hello to everybody. We will start. And we have the pleasure to have, as chair of this third workshop, Mr. Thierry Mathieu, representative of the Commission of Democracy, Social Cohesion, and Major Challenges of the Conference of NGOs of the Council of Europe in the framework of the sixth session of the Landscape Award. And Mr. Thierry Mathieu will chair this session.
Thank you. Oui, tout d'abord, je tiens à remercier les organisateurs et tout particulièrement Maglone. Hein. On connaît la continuité et la force avec laquelle elle défend ce paysage, et aussi bien évidemment sa collaboratrice Eva et les organisateurs locaux. Hein. Ça fait quelques dizaines d'années, je dirais pas combien, que je... Oui, merci. Ça fait quelques dizaines d'années, je venais ici au Météore, et j'ai grand plaisir à m'y retrouver parmi vous. Donc, il me revient le plaisir et l'honneur ce matin de présider l'atelier sur les paysages gérés, hein, avec des actions qui visent, dans une perspective de développement durable, à entretenir le paysage afin de guider et d'harmoniser les transformations. On sait que c'est un découpage un peu informel, mais il fallait bien répartir ces projets qui sont tous de grande valeur, comme cela a déjà été dit. Comme il a été aussi dit, je représentais dans le jury la commission démocratie, cohésion sociale et enjeux mondiaux de la conférence des organisations internationales non gouvernementales du Conseil de l'Europe, qui est l'organisation, le pilier représentant la société civile organisée au sein des 46 pays du Conseil de l'Europe. Tout d'abord, nous allons donc avoir la première présentation qui va être sur les journées d'activité communautaire. Faisons-le, let's do it. Les représentants donc c'est un projet qui a été porté par le Fonds estonien pour la nature, et les représentants du projet, donc Monsieur Mik Merekiewicz, coordinateur du comté, membre du Fonds estonien pour la nature pour l'Estonie, et Madame Kadilis Merekiewicz, assistante coordinatrice du comté, membre du Fonds estonien pour la nature aussi. Donc, je vous laisse la parole pour présenter ce projet, mais je voulais tout d'abord faire une petite introduction en disant que c'est un projet fédérateur portant sur une action collective, hein, puisqu'il y a eu plus de 500 000 participants. Et juste, si Maglone, vous me permettez, je voulais parler de l'histoire du colibri. En quelque sorte, l'histoire du colibri, mais ça me semble être représentatif de ce projet. Hein, donc, ce petit oiseau qui, pour éteindre le feu dans la forêt, va chercher des gouttes d'eau, et les autres animaux lui disant mais tu es fou, tu n'y arriveras jamais. Et donc c'est un peu ça, si vous voulez, ces 500 000 participants, chacun individuellement apportant leur contribution pour ne pas éteindre le feu, mais ranimer la flamme de la beauté du paysage. Donc participation des populations à l'entretien du paysage dans une perspective de développement durable, avec une prise de conscience des valeurs du paysage et de son amélioration par la population. C'est à vous, merci.
Thank you, and hello from Estonia. It's almost going home, yeah, but I hope you can still focus. And we are talking about Let's Do It. Community Activities Day, Let's Do It. And at first, we are from Estonia, so we can say hello to our neighbors from Latvia and Finland. Hello. Yes. And where is Estonia? Maybe a few of you still doesn't remember. So let's take the map. So we have a really small country, only 1.3 million people, and sometimes it helps, sometimes it's not so good. But most of the time it helps, because if you have a small country and you have a good idea, it's easier to work it out. If you live in India and you have some kind of crazy idea, then you could be alone until you're dead. But if you're in Estonia and you shout out loud, there is not so many people, so we will work it out. Okay, let's continue. What is the community activities day? Let's do it. In Estonia, we call it Teeme ära. It's the day of voluntary action. In Estonia, we say talgud, talgupäev. That has been taking place in different forms all over Estonia since 2008 already. So it's a large campaign to activate civic society in Estonia to strengthen the local communities, raise environmental awareness, and improve landscape quality. The first Let's Do It took place in Estonia, as I said, in May 2008, with a countrywide action. In one day, only one day, 10,000 tons of illegal waste was cleaned up from forests and countryside. So by more than 50,000 volunteers. In Estonia, we have 1.3 million people all together, and we get 50,000 people in one day to clean our country, and it worked. We have a short video for that, and we try to focus on that for a second. It's also the video from 2008, so the quality is maybe not the best, but, but the sparks in their eyes is worth it. Sound.
Forests were decorated with household and construction waste. Many people believed it is acceptable to bring their garbage to the forest, and they had been doing that for years. But there was a group of people who believed that all this could be changed.
Teeme ära sündis niimoodi, et kõigepealt tuli minul selline mõte, et mis oleks, kui koristaks Eestimaa täiesti puhtaks.
Ja kui me Raineriga kokku saime ja rääkisime enda plaanidest, et mida võiks ära teha, siis Rainer ütles, et stopp. Et selle me teeme ära küll, aga me teeme selle ära ühe päeva jooksul.
Jah, sellist asja polnud kunagi varem tehtud ja esiotsa ei olnud meil õrna aimugi, kuidas seda teha. Aga me olime kindlad, et seda on võimalik teha.
The idea was named Let's Do It, and the plan was to clean up 10,000 tons of waste in just one day. To do that, it was necessary to engage at least 40,000 volunteers. But how to do it? The first step was to create a team with the best professionals in Estonia. A grassroots initiative was launched. In a few weeks, there was a team of 20 volunteers, which eventually grew to 620 people.
Inimesed, keda me projekti kaasasime, olid oma alatöölised professionaalid. Ja nad tegid seda sellepärast, et see oli neile oluline.
The second step was to get the people, organizations, communities to gather enough support for the idea and find reliable partners. Initiators realized from the start that they needed the support of the entire society, so they went on to win the support of opinion leaders, NGOs, top IT specialists, the largest enterprises, politicians, the media, even the president, gathering eventually more than 500 official partners.
Iga firma panustas siis vastavalt sellele, mis ressursid tal olid, et kes tuli meile appi oma töötajatega, kes andis meile oma töövahendeid, prügiautosid, kes andis meile oma reklaamipindu.
Meile öeldi, et projekti lõpufaasis olime me nagu maffia. Keegi ei saanud meile ära öelda.
The third step was to locate and estimate the type and amount of garbage, creating the virtual garbage map.
See ei olnud raske kokku kombineerida Google Earthi ja mitmeid muid tarkvaralisi juppe, mis on kõik vabalt saadaval. ja lõpptulemusena sündis siis väga lahe tarkvara, kus inimesed said oma mobiiltelefoniga metsas ringi kõndides vajutada nuppule ja öelda, et siin kohas on nüüd trügihunnik ja kaadril läks automaatselt selle siis telefoni asukoht ja pilt, mida inimene samal ajal tegi, kõik toimus reaalajas. Väga lõbus oli kaardistamise nädalavahetusel istuda arvuti taga ja vaadata, kuidas need Eestit punktid muudkui tuli sinna kaardi peale.
In total, 720 volunteers took part in the mapping process, and 10,656 trash points were located on the map. But the most important question remained, how to get 40,000 people to clean it all up.
Esimene ülesanne oli tegelikult üldse inimestele nii-öelda silme ette tuua, et mis olukord valitseb ja siis ka see olukord nii-öelda ära kaardistada, et siis näidata, mis on need tõelised suurusjärgud. Seda ei olnud keegi varem teinud ega isegi mõelnud.
Estonian well-known actors, musicians, and cultural leaders gave their voice and face to the campaign for free. All of a sudden, Let's Do It was everywhere. The action of 40,000 needed to be organized. We asked people to register as teams via the internet. Each team was responsible for cleaning up certain trash points.
Kuskil 2 nädalat enne registreerimise lõppu oli meil umbes 10 000 inimest registreerinud ja siis mõtlesime küll, et mis me nüüd teeme.
On that day, the most impossible dreams came true. More than 50,000 people came out to participate, and the rest followed the process via all the media channels. That's 4% of a population of 1.3 million, which would equal 15.3 million in the United States or 57 million in India. There were also Americans, Russians, Germans, Swedish, Finns, Chinese, Lithuanians. The international media was following the most ambitious volunteer action in modern times. News of the event reached all around the globe. Under normal circumstances, it would have taken the government 3 years and 22.5 million euros for doing it. But it was done for €500,000 and in only 1 day. On the 3rd of May 2008, the whole territory of Estonia was cleaned of its garbage in 5 hours. We did it.
Ma loodan, et meie lugu teid inspireerib. Ja ma usun siiralt, et seda projekti saab teha ka teie kodumaal. See ei maksa palju ja see on kõigest 1 päev.
Let's do it.
So, what do you think? Let's do it. And actually, we had a slight problem. We can't call it a real problem, but after 2008, we had the idea that, okay, it was a really great action, but what should we do next year if everything is already cleaned? So we took 1 year to think about it, and from 2010 we continued a little bit differently. We continued this, actually it's like from 2010, but from 2011 the project goes to our Estonian Fund of Nature. And it's like different because there is not only cleaning what needs to be done. So we need to do a lot of things. Sometimes something needs to be painted, sometimes some things need to be demolished, whatever. So it's a day where you can do what needs to be done. So this idea, at first the cleaning idea, spread quickly from Estonia to other countries in Europe and beyond and led to the first World Cleanup Day. So there are like 2 sides. Today one is the World Cleanup Day, which is in September, and the other one is Let's Do It campaign, which is in May in Estonia only, or a little bit countrywide also, but mostly in Estonia. So in 2020, already more than 190 countries all over the world joined the action, with more than 60 million volunteers. So if Let's Do It is a company, then we are a successful company. A lot of people, a lot of countries. And let's continue. Let's Do It action takes place on the first Saturday of May every single year. Activities under the project are coordinated by the project team, which is all volunteer. but all the ideas and real work on the fields are made by local communities. Ideas of things need to be done come all from simple people as you and me. So it's not like something official. Okay, I take the web page, I look what's going on in our neighborhood, what the government thinks or something. No, if I have an idea that this ditch needs to be cleaned or this roadside or something, then I will organize it. I can go to web page, write it down, okay, this work needs to be done. I'm ready to lead that thing. And we can raise the quality of the environment and landscape management actions in addition to the aspects of cultural and aesthetic values, cleaning Estonia from illegal garbage, management of parks and green areas in towns and villages, planting of trees and forests, building the boardwalks to bogs and so on. So if you most of the time create beautiful landscapes, then we have an idea how to keep them clean. So, altogether, more than 17,000 different community activities with more than 500 participants have taken place since 2008 until today. So, 500,000 participants. In Estonia, there is still 1.3 million people only. Yeah. Since 2014, usually 4% of Estonians are every year at the same day doing the same or a little bit different thing. So it's really popular in Estonia and it grows. The highest participation rate, 11% of the inhabitants have participated in Saaremaa, which is an island we have. So 11%, that's quite crazy. And they are every year in May doing something great. So, the pandemic years, yeah, they have been slightly different. In 2020, everything was locked down and everything was, you know. So, we had to do something. We had like mask making workshops. 2021, we had 2+2, let's do it day. So, we had like no more than 2 people together and not closer than 2 meters from the others. So it was a little bit smaller, but it worked out. And it was a little bit, it was a little bit like underground. Some of the villages came together. There were maybe 10 plus people, and they were like a little bit scared. We can't be here, but we have to do great things to our community. Everything went well. So last year we didn't make any statistics how much people came together because I think it's not a great idea if there is a pandemic. Okay, here are a few photos. At first you can see coloring the wheelchair road in Maarja village. There is something which is like created maybe from the government, but it needs care. So this is the thing where our community can join. We can do it together, faster, and there is only, we need to pay for the paint, so everything is free. Work in Coordination Center, the other picture. There you can see our president, and the work center is really, actually it's like a funny thing, because all the actions in different places in Estonia get one phone call from somebody from the Coordination Center. They will call, they will ask, how are you doing? Do you need help? Do you have problems? How many of you You find maybe something old from the ditch or barn. Maybe you can find the love from there, whatever. You can find the neighbor who you didn't know. Now you know. So it works really well. This year, one of the focuses is get to know to each other. It's a great place to communicate with your neighbors, or maybe somebody who lived into your village from the Ukraine, for example. It's a great place where to communicate. So there are a few more. Reconstruction of village mailboxes. This was a great project. Our mail company gave people for free these mailboxes. You see there, the orange one. So if you wanted new one to your village, you could sign up that, okay, it's needed. We have this many houses, and they gave you these mailboxes for free, and you had to make just like the how to say, like the stand or where to put it. You have to like build it up a little bit. So it's a great example. For our postal office or postal company, it's only these boxes. They don't have to come to every single village in Estonia to make it. And everybody's happy because they made it as they like. Simple. So, building outdoor libraries, 2019, it was also great. The outdoor library idea is that you can take the book from the outdoor library, and if you have read it, you put it back. Or if you have books you don't read, you can put them there. So they are in public places, and the fantasy of the people was quite crazy. They used, for example, old fridges, because they are greatly like sealant and works well, and different old things, and they look perfect, and there are a lot of them in Estonia. So in 2016, I think it was one of the more like necessary project. Our rescue gave those equipments for every community who wanted to install the stands of water safety near their ponds or lakes or rivers. So today in Estonia, if you go wherever you want for a swim, then most of the places have this kind of safety stands. And it's really important. It's really important. And also for our rescue, it was maybe, I don't know how much these things cost, but it's it's really small amount of money, because if you have to go to every place to make it those big things and put everything there and so on, then it's I think 10 times or even 100 times more expensive. And also, if your community builds something like that, then you will like worry, is it okay all the time? So if I go back there for swimming, then I check, is it okay as we made it? Yes. That's like double check. If somebody from the government or from the rescue comes there and builds something, I think it's like 2 days and it's gone or broken or whatever. But in this way, we all made it together. Activities in Let's Do It also, we have like slight different sides. If you have the basic thing to do, then there are some extras you can do if you want. For example, observation of cowslips by counting S and L type flowers in the frame of Citizen Science Project looking for cowslips to provide an insight into the state of the cowslips and related species. So it takes thousands of scientists on the fields to figure it out. In this campaign, we had like application in our phone. We opened it. There was simple text how to do it. You have to check inside 100 like flowers inside, and there are like differences. And you mark in the application, is it S or L type? There are like two pictures. Okay, this one is S, this one is L. And if you do it with 100 flowers, you get something really, really important for our biologists. And you don't have to pay for thousands of biologists for that. It's really, really simple. And it's just an extra idea if you want to join. And there is a lot of people who joined, which is really lovely. So here are a few more photos. That's from Keri Island, really small island. And so much people came there to make things better. Here a few more. Things what need to be done. And you decide what to do. Nobody else tells you. So, the experience of the community activities day in Estonia shows that there is no need for tens of thousands of euros to change the living environment. It is enough to have tens of thousands of people who really care. Thank you. And I have also this hot tap water idea for you to take with you. In Estonia we have a system. If you buy water in the bottle, the water is maybe 50 cents, but for the bottle you have to pay extra 10 cents. And if you bring the bottle back to the market later, you get your 10 cents back. It's a great idea, because if I don't care of this 10 cents, I throw it away, then there are homeless people or whoever wants this 10 cents. So there is almost no plastic bottles in Estonia. You can't find almost anywhere. But today, if you don't have this system yet, then I have a tip for you. If you drink your water and the bottle is empty, inside there is air. And it's important for us, yeah. So don't throw it away. Don't throw it away, because it takes a lot of space. If you fold it, you can be sure you have done 100 times better than maybe last time. And you don't throw away the important air. It's easier to be better. Thank you.
Merci pour cette présentation qui montre la force de conviction du colibri en Estonie, et que seul on ne peut rien et à 500 000 on peut beaucoup. Merci.
For this impressive presentation. Congratulations. And we would like to give you both this diploma and tu peux venir, voilà.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for calling us. We're really sorry we have to leave because we have to catch the flight. Thank you. Yes, we have to. Tomorrow morning we have to be in Estonia, so. Yeah. Okay.
Merci encore. Et donc nous allons pouvoir passer à la deuxième présentation par l'Italie, qui s'intitule « Entre terre et eau, une autre manière de posséder », portée par le consortium Les Hommes de Masenzatica. Et alors, je ne sais pas si tous les participants sont là, enfin les présentateurs, donc avec Madame Isabelle Ferrat, qui est haut fonctionnaire, service de la gestion du paysage du ministère de la Culture, en tant que représentant du ministère, donc, et les représentants du projet, Monsieur Carlo Ragazzi, président du consortium Les Hommes de Masenzatica, et Monsieur Trombini Ribes, qui est vice-président du consortium Les Hommes de Masenzatica. Juste en introduction, de façon courte, hein, ce projet met en exergue l'approche paysagère comme un facteur de cohésion sociale et de maintien du capital social, avec une organisation de la propriété permettant la lutte contre l'exode rural. Il met en avant les efforts pour lutter contre une exploitation extensive de la terre, respectant l'environnement. Et il vise surtout aussi au maintien de la population sur ces territoires. Merci et par avance pour votre présentation.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. And first of all, thank to you all on behalf of the Ministry of Culture, to the Council of Europe, and especially to Maglone de Jampon, who has been so stubborn to finally bring us together to see all the interesting projects we've been seeing in the last days. After these 2 years of almost complete stop. Italy, so I will start the presentation. Okay. Italy has been participating in the European Landscape Award since its institution, organizing a national competition for each session, a little bit as other colleagues from other countries have told us too. And I just put these different images by Italian contemporary artists, just to say that the 7 editions have been different ways to look at Italian territory in different ways and through different eyes. The selection procedure, which is public and transparent, has consistently proven to facilitate the selection of quality projects, thanks to the selection from a very large number, gathered through a call for candidates circulated widely throughout Italy. Has also been useful in raising awareness of the cultural and social values tied to landscape through media advertising, as well as public events held in various Italian cities, and the involvement of universities, local organizations and communities, associations, and a range of individuals interested in issues related to landscape. You see here So the selection criteria for Italian candidate has focused in the different sessions on specific aspects. Landscape management and protection projects seen as strategies which reaffirm multiple landscape values. The recognition of a territorial landscape network, as in Val di Cornia parks, the creation of a new territorial identity linked to 20th century productive landscape, in Carbonia landscape machine, the regeneration of a landscape in its ethical aspects, as in Alto Belice Corleonese, the Libera experience, the bottom-up regeneration of the territory through the retrieval of traditional high-quality cultivations, as in Parco Agricolo dei Paduli, and the archaeological park of Agrigento, which links the landscape values to archaeological values with the attempt to promote sustainable tourism. So this is a map showing all of the participants to the 2018 edition of the award. And we must say the response was quite good, having around 100 entries. And the committee, which was selected by the ministry and in putting together experts coming from different fields like education, communication, and of course landscape architecture. they selected, of course, a short list of the best entries, but giving acknowledgement to many projects, dividing them into mentions, praises, and appreciations, as you can see roughly on the map. And we also done a data analysis just to see in which geographical distribution are the entries to the selection, and also the typologies of the projects. And that's quite interesting and could be the object maybe of a further study. So there's contemporary art, restoration of historical landscape, educational projects, and complex programs. Here you can see, just looking at them very briefly, how the mentions and the praises were selected, and what kind of projects have been put in this network, which is a little bit like the alliance of the European Landscape Award, but on a national scale. So this is the publication, a small book from the 2020 edition of the prize. And this is just to open up to an invitation to you all for the 28th and 29th of April, when we will be in Bergamo, and we will see for ourselves the project of biodiversity in the city, Bergamo and the Astino Valley, which was the Landscape Award for 2020-2021. So the winner of the national competition for 2018 was the project we are now presenting, Between Land and Water, Another Way of Owning Agriculture, Social Enterprise, Landscape and Sustainability for a Continually Evolving Identity Space, the experience of the Consorzio Uomini di Massenzatica. So it's a very special project. It was selected for its uniqueness and originality, first of all in the type of ownership. It's a collective ownership, and it's an ancient one. It dates back to medieval ages, and it came around thanks to the religious center of the Abbey of Pomposa, which you see here. And it's very much a testimonial of how in ancient times the territory settlement were scattered around, taking the religious center as the reference, but of course not having the polarization we have now around big cities. And I think this project shows a little the way for a new balance that could be obtained today. So I will briefly show you how the committee decided to select the project through the 4 criteria. So that's for the landscape, environmental, cultural, and economic sustainability. The territory and its landscape were given their historical productive function back, an evocation of the genius loci, which is a Latin expression for the spirit of the place, projected towards the future, confirming the nature and the peculiarities of common assets for the implementation of forms of sustainable economic and social development. The common asset was reclaimed, promoted, and passed down to new generations, enriched in values and meanings, first and foremost those capable of nourishing strong feelings of belonging and identity, creating a symbiotic bond between residents and places that nevertheless, in the case of the consortium, doesn't mean closure towards non-residents and foreigners. So public participation, it's quite straightforward to see how collective ownership means complete participation of its components and also the collaboration with different public entities, so universities and different ministries, because of the peculiar environmental and geographic situation of areas subject to a state of precariousness like that of the consortium, they prompt members to seek out and maintain contact with all these different public entities in order to give a solution to the everyday problem of keeping their land dry somehow. So awareness raising was also a concern for the ministry to find how they had put in place this criterion, and their activities were judged very positively by the committee, in particular for having supported educational activities on the theme of landscape as a common asset. Exemplarity is also an interesting case. The committee recognized the potential of the project to serve as a model that could be adopted in other contexts, especially in cases where degradation due to the neglect and abandonment has wiped out significant cultural and traditional values that characterize history of the local population. Placing the values of solidarity and reciprocal help at the center of its practices, the consortium created the Landscape Pact, the implementation of which made it possible through a public outreach work aimed to motivate the community to take responsibility for the sustainable management of area as a common asset. And you see, I just put a small sketch by Gis Platform, which shows the difference between an administrative limit and a biological limit. So the boundary is not really a line, almost never, and the richness is all in its being really an area. And as you see in the map, you can see the consortium land. Maybe I can go. And how the arrows come out of it, because one of the main projects now of the associations is to acquire new land or export their model to the neighbor proprietors. Okay, so these are additional criteria from the national selection Italian call for applicants, and they were all somehow fulfilled by the project. Those are just frames from a video which Italian television issued after the Landscape Award. And on the 14th of March each year, we have the National Landscape Day. And on the occasion of the 2019 Landscape Day in Italy, we had the former ministry handing out to Mr. Carlo Ragazzi, who is here, the symbol of the Landscape Award, which was an engravure by Piranesi. Someone asked me in the last days, what do we give to award winners in Italy? And so looking forward and not back, this is the last chapter that they are writing now. So they have a beautiful book. I don't know if they have it here, maybe il libro, ce l'hai qua per farlo vedere? Okay. And it's a project by Studio Land, Andrea Skipper, an agro-environmental laboratory for the Po River Delta. So they're looking towards turning the territory into a large garden for Europe. And finally, just a small parallel that I thought was quite significant about common roots of the word landscape. Sure, there are lots of theories about how the term landscape came together, but I've read one by Yves Le Guimbulle in his book Landscape Dimensions, and he says the first word equivalent to the term landscape emerged in the 15th century. In Dutch, German, and Danish Friesland, the peasantry who occupied the marshlands on the shores of the North Sea constructed terpen, which were artificial hillocks built up from earth taken from the surrounding area to provide ground that would be safe from the highest tides. They managed their living environment almost entirely autonomously, untouched by the binding rules of feudalism. So they were a collective ownership. The term landscape appeared in 1462, representing the first known occurrence of the equivalent of the word landscape. The term combines land, meaning country, and skap, which is the equivalent of the German word Schaft, meaning community, but it complements this with customary law in form of territorial governance. So I was quite struck by the resemblance of the community type and the landscape and territorial type, and to think that it represents the origin of the word and somehow of the concept of why it is necessary to landscape an area and how the community reflects in its landscape. And so I will just pass the word to Carlo Ragazzi, who will introduce a beautiful video for you. Okay. No.
Bonjour, c'est très difficile pour moi, problème de langue. Bonjour, je suis le président du consortium des hommes de Massensatica. Merci pour votre accoglience et excellente organisation. Pour moi, il est très difficile de résumer un mode de vie dans une relation écrite ou dans une vidéo, sans parir autocongratulant. Notre réalité, c'est une façon de vivre. Chez nous, les paysages sont fatigués, soudure et adaptation continue. C'est un paysage ordinaire en continue évolution. Dans les approches économiques dans la gestion de la terre commune, nous avons mis en place un système qui déplace l'axe de soi vers le nous et de prendre vers donner. Un élément fondamental avec la confidence. Dans notre projet, il n'y a pas un seul euro de dépenses publiques. Sont toutes ressources au sein de la communauté. Quelques mots d'orientation pour visionner les vidéos qui résument notre expérience. Nous sommes parmi la première, ou tra les premières communautés qui débutent dans le delta del Po, sûrement période romaine. La communauté a lutté au cours des siècles avec les eaux pour survivre. La communauté a construit un territoire à travers le contrôle hydraulique des aques libres du fleuve Po. Aujourd'hui, c'est un territoire sur le niveau del mar d'1 mètre. C'est une petite communauté qui, en forme indivise, possède 350 hectares de terre. Et c'est une forme juridique particulière. C'est un common. Terra comune. Notre expérience, nous la parlons intimité pour l'homme et la terre. Merci et bon vous.
La storia del consorzio degli uomini.
The history of Umani di Masanzatica Consortium began in 1894. In that year, the legislature of the Kingdom of Italy finally decided to recognize the value of collective property.
Una minima valenza alle proprietà collettive. Sono aree perfettamente coltivabili.
This is well-drained land, perfect for farming. But at what price? At the price of working it continuously. At the price of keeping it within an integrated system.
Che la proprietà collettiva ha garantito allora.
A system which collective ownership maintained then, maintained yesterday, and still maintains today.
Fini e mezzi che sono.
The history of the men of Masanzatica began more than 1700 years ago, around the Pomposa monastery, in a marshy and brackish area, not at all suitable for farming. Drainage works have made the area arable, with constant care given to the land and the landscape by human beings. The story of communities is one of canals to be dug, embankments to be raised, a story of land and water. The Po Delta is a fragile and complex area, and one in continuous evolution, the result of an intimate relationship between human beings and the environment.
Questo è un territorio speciale.
This is special land. We are proud to be able to give value, to have given value, and to return value to this area. It is a complex land designed by the flow of the open waters of the Po Delta. Ours is a community that has settled and lives along the old coastline of the Adriatic Sea, which is now receded.
In 1896, the men and women of Masansatika formed a consortium in order to achieve management based on shared values and collective work, a strong link between community and environment for the benefit of future generations. The community and work are at the center of the endeavors of the administrators. The consortium is the glue between identity, community, and territory, and rests on the daily commitment of over 600 families, 1,600 souls.
Ci guida l'orgoglio.
We are guided by the pride and awareness of living in a special place,
in un territorio speciale,
in a special dimension.
Dimensione particolare. A noi piace dire.
We like to think that our consortium has a soul.
The consortium reinvests its profits in inclusive development projects, supporting small farmers and promoting employment for its members, particularly women. At the center of its endeavors, the community and its needs, supporting social and cultural initiatives, restoring local heritage, and increasing services. Investing to combat depopulation and maintain high levels of employment. Collective land management able to represent an economic and organizational model, which has managed to evolve, transforming the sum of the interests involved into a system of shared values to be passed on to the future generations.
Saper leggere I tempi e interpretare.
For us, knowing how to interpret the age in which we live and the conditions of a community requires intergenerational responsibility. It means working with a strong ethical imprint to try to leave things better than we found them.
Cerchiamo costantemente di coniugare I saperi dei nostri.
We are constantly trying to combine the know-how of our elders with research and innovation, both in the agronomic and social fields. This has enabled our land to grow in a homogeneous way.
Questa è una comunità che dal 1990 in poi, attraverso il lavoro.
Ours is a community which since 1990, through work and solidarity, has managed to integrate a lot of foreign labour and manage complexities. Ours is an agricultural system which, thanks to hard work, manages to create multi-ethnic integration.
Ci piace anche considerarci non più come una zona.
We also like to see ourselves no longer as a depressed area, but as a rich one, still able to produce lots of energy and good results.
E molti buoni frutti. Questo è un territorio.
Ours is an area which, on average, is about 2 meters below sea level.
Siamo in un sistema idraulico complesso.
We are part of a complex hydraulic system where human beings constantly regulate the water so that the land is productive and fertile.
Devono essere produttivi e fertili.
The consortium is experimenting with a pact with the landscape, protecting the territory through the collaboration of farms and access to rural development funds. An agri-food agreement for a balance between agricultural production and renaturalization of the environment to achieve landscape enhancement and recovery of marginal, abandoned, and disused green areas. The consortium is constantly engaged in looking after existing environmental resources, planting new tree and shrub species. It is also closely focused on protecting those parts of the landscape of great environmental value for the construction of green infrastructures. The Terra Pomposiane landscape is constantly evolving, suspended between land and water, and the people of Masentzatika are constantly committed to protecting the biodiversity and the struggle against genetic erosion. The result is a landscape with a strong identity, rich in a great historical, cultural and economic heritage.
Questa comunità svolge un compito molto importante di salvaguardia del territorio e di tutela del territorio.
Our community performs the most important task of safeguarding and protecting the land. So an intimate bond is created between it and the environment. We are working so that these lands can be the starter, the driving force to bring the Po Delta to a new level, to make it a green infrastructure where man and environment coexist for the benefit of future generations.
A beneficio delle future generazioni.
Selected from among 130 candidates, the Uomini di Masentzatika Consortium won the 2018 to 2019 edition of the prestigious National Landscape Award and has been nominated to represent Italy at the 6th edition of the Council of Europe Landscape Award. The project is recognized for supporting the reaffirmation of the values of collective property and land care, the implementation of sustainable development programs for the benefit of the local community, and the establishment of a representative experience of Italy's profound landscape culture.
Siamo riusciti nella nostra impresa di spostare l'asse delle priorità.
We have succeeded in our endeavour to shift the axis of priorities from I to we. For a community whose origins are very poor, having achieved goals of national and international importance sends us a message of great awareness, on the one hand of our limits, but also of our strength, which is rooted in being together.
Today, an important objective of the consortium is to extend the entrepreneurial and social model by exporting the economic and landscape values of the community to neighbouring areas in order to achieve the mutual enhancement of the fragile areas of the Po Delta.
Noi abbiamo fatto tanta strada, consapevoli.
We have come a long way, knowing that we can still do a lot. The need exists to mend the rift created in the 20th century between the city and the countryside. The city must reclaim its countryside as an element of reflection and meditation, not just as a productive element.
Elemento produttivo. Noi con il nostro sistema abbiamo consentito a oltre 20 aziende agricole di crescere, di produrre.
With our system, we have enabled more than 20 farms to grow and produce wealth and well-being in this part of the Po Delta. We should like to insist on proposing a type of agriculture that evolves towards food quality.
Verso un discorso di qualità del cibo, stiamo mettendo al primo posto la tutela.
We are prioritizing the protection of biodiversity. Through biodiversity and the rural system, we can also protect the landscape. A large green infrastructure in the Po Delta as an experimental agri-environmental laboratory.
Per quanto riguarda invece gli aspetti sociali,
as far as social and cohesion aspects are concerned, we are going to set up a microbrewery and a community shop aimed at enhancing the products of the countryside and creating jobs.
stiamo dedicando risorse significative.
We are dedicating significant resources to the support and operation of the local nursery school by increasing scholarships, relations with the academic world, and with universities. We believe that children are a resource, a value for our community.
The men and women of the consortium have already come a long way, but they look to the future, determined to do even better. They are relaunching their challenge. They have the ambition to transform the countryside into gardens. They think of themselves as the custodians of a land which is a great place to live.
I just wanted to, you can hear me? Yes. I just wanted to add a big thank you to my colleague Maria Maddalena Alessandro, who was the first contact and link with the consortium and who worked a lot on this project. Thank you.
Merci encore pour cette présentation de projet qui démontre le sens de la fraternité et de la communauté plutôt que la croissance individuelle, qui se traduit bien au travers des propos qui ont été tenus par M. Agazi, du soi vers le nous et prendre pour donner. Et ceci a encore plus de valeur dans la période difficile que nous traversons depuis 2 ans. Merci encore.
Alors nous vous félicitons également bien vivement et en fait nous avions eu le plaisir de vous remettre déjà le diplôme, mais nous pouvons quand même faire une photo ensemble si vous le souhaitez.
Projet avant la pause café et donc par la Croatie, Dragodi, préserver les techniques de maçonnerie en pierre sèche de l'Adriatique oriental, porté par l'association Forgrada Dragodi de Croatie et les représentants du ministère sont appelés donc Madame Vicky Jakazak-Boric, haut fonctionnaire du ministère de la Culture, Madame Mirna Bojic, conseillère principale en conservation du ministère de la Culture, et la représentante du projet, je ne sais pas si tout le monde est là, donc Madame Tanja Kremenic, chercheuse du département des sciences historiques, géographiques et de l'Antiquité, Forgrada Dragodi. Donc, ce projet est un projet avant tout éducatif, de formation et de sensibilisation sur le patrimoine et sur une technique qui a tendance à disparaître. Et ce sont des jeunes et professionnels et étudiants des disciplines concernant le patrimoine et le paysage qui sont engagés sur ce projet. Merci d'avance pour votre présentation.
Thank you. In behalf of the Ministry of Culture and Media of the Republic of Croatia, I would like to thank you for the hospitality, for the invitation and the great organization, above all Mrs. Magellan and Mrs. Eva. Our subject today, our topic is dry stone walling, dry stone walls in Croatia. Mrs. Tanya is going to present the activity of the NGO organization named Dragodit, which has an important role in spreading knowledge as well as in engaging in actual reparation work of dry stone wall structures along the Adriatic coast. Before that, I will just briefly give you an overview, a very short overview of the dry stone walls in Croatia. So the thousands of kilometers of dry stone walls shaped an exceptional coastal and island landscapes in Croatia as well as in the other Mediterranean countries. Despite the impossibility to protect all dry stone wall structures, it is of the utmost importance to protect the skills and knowledge that have been passed from one generation to the other through the centuries. So the inscription of the art of dry stone walling on the UNESCO representative list of intangible cultural heritage of humanity in 2018 was an important step towards the protection of this tradition. Although dry stone walls most often imply boundaries or fence walls of agricultural and livestock areas, the dry stone walling technique has been used to build various traditional structures, such as retaining walls for agricultural terraces, catchments for systems collecting water, small stone huts, enclosure for livestock, barns, sheds, or sometimes entire small settlements used as occasional dwellings in fields and on pastures. I would like also to emphasize that dry stone walling also plays an important role in preventing landslides, floods and avalanches, in fighting erosion, desolation of land, as well as in creating suitable microclimatic conditions for agriculture. The intervening of the man and the nature has generated the most valuable parts of the Croatian cultural historical landscape entirely marked by stone. The unrealistic beauty of the dry stone walls, which look like beautiful stone lace, at the same time reveal, which is important, the unmistakable traces of historical property divisions that have been preserved by thousands of kilometers of stone boundaries, perhaps better than by any archival documents. This is that really unrealistic and abstract beauty. Dry stone structures are unique testimonies of the oldest stone masonry technique, which has been used since prehistoric times. It's difficult to determine the date of this traditional construction due to the absence of stylistic elements and anonymity of the masons. It has remained the same for centuries. The local stone used for construction is extracted from small nearby quarries and stacked without binder. Apart from type of stone, the walls differ with respect to the manner of cutting and finishing the blocks of stone. Structures are sometimes built using a slabs, sometimes using unfinished blocks of stone, and sometimes using hewn blocks. Depending on the purpose of the wall, structures include single walls, double-faced walls filled with smaller pieces inside, vertical or inclined retaining walls, etc. There are many types of structures. The first land cultivation with the dry stone walling on the Croatian coastline has started in Neolithic, Bronze and Early Iron Age, as well as with the spread of the Illyric hill fort culture. Numerous prehistoric hill forts located on the raised positions, mostly on the hilltops, surrounded by plateaus and dry stone walls, today make recognizable archaeological landscapes. From Greek to Roman period, from Greek and Roman colonization period, still visible proofs of rectangular dry stone walls, divisions of agricultural properties have been preserved, and the cultural landscape of Stari Grad plain is an example of historic agrarian landscape planned with the same crops for the last 2,400 years. As one of the most preserved Greek land division in the Mediterranean, it has been inscribed on the UNESCO's list of World Heritage Sites. The plain was divided into an orthogonal network of plots measuring 180 by 900 meters. The main crops were grapes, wheat, and olives. During the Roman period, Greek plots have been divided into smaller units. Numerous agrarian buildings and villas have been erected, while dry walls were marking the borders between properties and roads, which are still preserved today. Today, agrarian landscapes of Adriatic territory was mostly shaped from the Middle Ages to the beginning of the 20th century by deforestation and amelioration of karstic terrain with kilometers-long dry stone walls which frame pastures and cultivated terrains. The era of Austro-Hungarian monarchy, especially the second half of the 19th century, was the period of the biggest changes in the Adriatic coastal landscape. Several pandemics of grape vine disease caused the crisis in Western Europe vineyards, and wine growers in the peripheral areas of the global economy, such as Croatian Adriatic, had an opportunity to increase and develop vineyard areas several times. Erection of several types of dry walls of hill slopes, which were not suitable for agricultural cultivation, shaped as terraced landscapes, and most of them we have also today. One of the nice example that was shaped in the frame of this period is a small island of Banjac, which is protected as a cultural landscape. It belongs to the parts of the karst that became attractive for cultivation during the wine conjuncture caused by spread of phylloxera in Europe. As a result of the collective cultivation efforts of the inhabitants of the neighboring islands, 7 kilometers of dry stone walls were built on a really small area, and the vineyards of this island represent a typical pre-industrial design of vineyards. Well-known vineyards of a Babić variety near Primošten is traditionally fragmented into the lots or cassettes. It is a terrace-shaped landscape. It was created in 1947 by manual clearing of bare rocks. It is interesting that it was then divided among local farmers by drawing of lots. I would like just to say a few words about Mrgari. They are considered as the most beautiful examples of the ancient dry stone walling. They are actually multispatial sheep folders, and they were built to separate the sheep tended by different owners on the common pastures. It is interesting because they have a shape of huge stone flowers, and we find only 15 pieces of them on the island of Krk and on the island of Prvić. At the moment we have actually the exhibition of the photo of Mrgari in Zagreb in the Archaeological Museum. I would also like to, this is another example of Mrgari. We also have them on the island of Cres, but not in this shape of stone, which is really specific. I have to mention Kajuni. It is an inevitable part of cultural landscape, of the landscape of the southern Istria region. They were built mostly shaped, round shape with interior diameter from just 2.5 to 3 meters with a irregular stone ceiling. They were mostly used as temporary shelters for people and cattle or tool sheds. Today, unfortunately, many of the dry stone walls is being demolished or used as a secondary material for construction of houses and apartment buildings. So there is actually a problem. The conservation measures, protection measures, has been applied on the structures which are inside the borders, the frames of the protected cultural landscapes. But the most of these thousands of kilometers are not under protection, so we have a problem. On the other side, it is also evident a new phenomenon in sense of new way of cultivation of the land with modern irrigation systems and huge machinery, and these terraced vineyards has been disappearing. So in this situation, there is also on the other side, a goodwill and a good energy. And my colleague, Tanja Kremenic, is going to present the activity of this good side of dry stone walling protection.
Okay, it's the same presentation. Hello to everybody. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Tanja Kremenic. I'm here to talk on the behalf of this Dragodit Association, who has been keeping this heritage alive in the last almost 20 years. So this is on the picture is one of the dry stone walls, and it's, for those who do not know, it's keeping stable, not due to the binding materials, because it has none. That is why it's called the dry stone wall. It has been keeping safe and stable due to the gravity, due to its shape, and the stacking and the technique that has been used for centuries and actually millennia. As to continue on the notions and the observations said by Mrs. Viki Akasha-Boric, this is a very naked map of the Croatia, and on it you can see this orange part represents one of the 3 biogeographical geomorphological regions of Croatia. And this one is the Croatian Adriatic, which is similar to the Greece and the Greek coast. It is actually a combination of the landscape and the seascape, comprising many islands and a karst environment. And these black lines, which you can see here, are representative of the walls. This is actually an underestimation of the walls which are currently there. We have probably between 200,000 and 300,000 of dry stone walls on the coast. And according to some recent scientific literature, a dry stone wall is actually an element which is the most dominant on our coast. And it is the one element which is pervasive and describing our cultural landscape, at least for this part of our country. There are 2 problems, main spatial tendencies, which have been going on, not only in Croatia, but also in the Mediterranean coast, which has been characterized by these walls. One is the vegetation succession, the overgrowth and the reforestation due to agricultural abandonment and due to the demographic decline, which has been happening during the 20th century. On this photograph, you can see actually the satellite aerial imagery from 1953 and 2014. And you can see how it has been abandoning, actually hiding the historical landscape. The second tendency are the novel constructions. As you probably know, Croatian coast has been in great demand to touristic infrastructure. And of course, this infrastructure is being constructed over the dry stone wall landscapes. Association of Dragodit, which has its informal beginnings start in 2002, but gaining a bigger momentum in 2007. Of course, we are under no illusion that we can safeguard the entirety of this heritage and patrimony, but in cooperation with the local communities and various institutions, we have been achieving certain activities and success, actually. From 2002, when the first group gathered, it was actually students of architecture who were trying to restore and repair certain elements of a village on the island of Vis, which is called Dragodit, and that is why the association bears this name. It's this village here. Under the guidance and supervision of a local master, they started to renovate this village. And these students of architecture and later on students of ethnology and geographers and landscape architects have been gathering, and now they were before students, now they became professionals or PhD candidates, and now we count 75 members across the coast, but also many of them are coming from the capital of Zagreb. The main objective of this association and its activities is, of course, to keep this technique alive, but also to promote it. But in our sense, we like to learn from the local masters, and we like to pass on the knowledge. And we do it in various ways. So we're having certain activities, which I will divide on the national level and international level. Our job is doing workshops, and workshop is a place where we can connect and also bridge these generational gaps between the younger people and the older people who know the knowledge. And in cooperation with the municipality of Mošćenička Draga, which is close to Učka mountain, and it's part of a natural park, we made a 30-year contract to restore a certain traditional abandoned village. And there is where we hang with new members, potential new members, recruit them, teach them these old techniques, not only in dry stone walling, but also in wooden roofs. Other yearly activity is in this cultural landscape, which is the first cultural landscape which has been protected due to its dry stone features. It has one of the steepest terraces in Croatia. Some of these walls are also, I think, high up to 5 meters. And it's quite steep. And you can see on this picture, which is on the lower part, on the right lower part, is the part that Dragodit, in cooperation with the local community and agricultural cooperative, has managed to restore in the recent years. As I said, that most of the members of this association are now in high formation, and we have also been engaged in doing lectures and seminars and summer schools for other students. Besides our physical presence in the territory, we have an online one, which we use as a compendium for all the documents, and we have their registry of all the people, of the masters and enthusiasts who would like to offer their services for dry stone walling. And there we put their contacts. We also use it as an archives where we merge and collect all the documentation regarding to the dry stone walling. It's almost everything is in Croatian, which we hope we will translate in the years to come. Of course, this is where you can find all the news and announcements of the workshops which are going on. The second thing, which is an online thing, is a WebGIS platform. This is similar to Andorra's Primera Pedra and Catalonia's Wikipedra. So it is a place where citizens, by participatory mapping, can upload photos. They need to geotag the photographs and offer as much description as possible. So it is also a location where you can find different structures, and because as you saw, there are a lot of them, and only one association cannot do it on its own. This is just an example of how it looks like. Also, in the recent years, we have made a publication, which is, I think, sold out every time we do a new edition, and it's on how to build a dry stone wall. Our activities on the national level and are also towards the institutions and the public recognition of this technique. So in 2013, some of our founding members were doing the documentation in order to protect this technique. After the successful entry of this technique as immaterial heritage, we continued on with other countries based on a meeting which was in Cyprus some years ago, and 8 countries now nominated this technique, and it was included in the list of immaterial heritage in 2018. And this is something we did last year in autumn, and this was the 17th International Conference on the Dry Stone Wall, which we organized in coordination with our colleagues from France, Société de la Pierre Sèche. And of course, during the conference, we had to renew a certain dry stone wall and a pond. What I didn't also say that on these workshops, we tend to include all the various groups, from children, preschool, school children, some hunters association, adrenaline associations, to promote this. So these workshops are actually based on passing on the knowledge, but also we tend to do the wall so that it is stable. But the stability of the wall is something that we need to prove in the years also to come, because a dry stone waller is not a vocational job in Croatia. I think only France and Italy has made certain achievements in this sense, but we still don't have it in our registry. So we now are tending, and we want to do a certain either academia or a school which will help and assist these experts and professionals to do a wall which can guarantee its stability, so that it's not only built in agricultural parts, but also as part of the roads, as it was done in the past as well. Some of the effects of the activities that we do, there are plenty, and we know from the local masters that they were really proud when they were parts of this registry, because immateriality of this technique is being kept by the bearers of the technique. And normally in Croatia and probably in other countries, it is part of the older people who are happy to pass on the knowledge that was really normal and common to them all these years. And this is one of the letters which we have received while we have been gathering this documentation. Other kinds of effects are the bridging of the generational gaps, which I've mentioned, but also it is the ensuring and creating of this feedback loop. So the success of Dragodid is not only the success of Dragodid in this sense, but also of the institutions and the local communities and the touristic board and everybody who recognize these activities, because we are now working on their demand, and we are now helping them organize things for them. So doing and repairing a dry stone wall actually conveys multiple values of a landscape as well, because the dry stone wall has been accepted as a habitat in ecological sense. So it's now part of the activities which are done by the natural parks as well, not only in the scope of culture. And I think that by doing these multiple activities in this sense, we are approaching the landscape in the way that it should be approached, since landscape is a multifunctional aspect of the area, and this multi-aspect kind of activity is, I think, very apt in the preservation of the cultural landscape. Thank you.
Merci pour cette belle présentation qui démontre l'importance de la transmission dans les valeurs du paysage. Merci.
Merci, et nous ne pouvons que souligner l'importance de la pierre sèche et rappeler que la conférence du Conseil d'Europe sur le paysage a adopté il y a peut-être 4 ans un memento sur la pierre sèche et le paysage pour soutenir les initiatives et les travaux des professionnels et des amateurs et des personnes intéressées par la pierre sèche, et qu'un rapport sera prochainement publié dans l'ouvrage de la Convention qui paraîtra dans quelque temps. Et je voulais bien entendu vous remettre ce diplôme, et je crois qu'une plaque également vous avait été envoyée en Croatie il y a quelque temps. Je vous remercie. And now we can do a break and have a coffee break for
Short.
20 minutes. It's okay, 20 minutes.
with all my chest for the first time.
Vous voulez bien vous installer, qu'on ait un temps de discussion après. Et donc, c'est le projet présenté par la Géorgie, développement durable du canyon de Martville. Représentant du ministère, Madame Tamar, je m'excuse pour la prononciation, si ce n'est pas Kastraki, présidente adjointe de l'Agence des zones protégées, ministère de la protection de l'environnement et de l'agriculture. Il y a aussi Monsieur Bessi Kusidi, président adjoint de l'Agence des zones protégées, Agence des zones protégées, ministère de la protection de l'environnement et de l'agriculture. Et comme représentant du projet, Monsieur Zaza Gaga, directeur de l'administration du canyon de Martville, Agence des zones protégées. Et nous donnons la parole à Madame Tamar Kastraki. Merci d'avance pour cette présentation. Alors juste, c'est un projet de développement durable d'une zone dégradée avec un entretien, une rénovation, une sécurisation et le développement d'un tourisme durable. Merci, Madame.
Merci, Mr. Thierry, for giving me the floor. So, on behalf of the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Agriculture and the Agency of Protected Areas of Georgia, let me express our gratitude and sincere thanks to the Council of Europe Landscape Convention for the continuous support throughout these years, and especially Ms. Maguela Dejepo, who has been a strong supporter and encouragement for Georgia in that direction. So, let me show you one presentation about one great case of Georgia, and especially Martville Canyon, which has been an exceptional case for Georgia in terms of transforming landscapes into absolutely amazing destination. But before I start presenting the project, let me also introduce our little country. I'm sure it's a lovely country for some of you, and you have also visited this country. But let me remind that this is a small country, quite located at the crossroad of Europe and Asia. The population is just about 3.4 million citizens, and we are the one who is an Asian country. However, in spite of this scope, a little scope of the country, the biodiversity of the country is quite unique, and the landscapes are very diverse, starting from mountainous regions and seashores, and also the semi-deserts. Most of the landscapes are integrated into protected areas, which are about 94 in Georgia, and the protected areas are covering about 11.5% of the whole country. Let me show you some of them just to have an imagination of our country, which is quite unique, and the fascinating landscapes. Here you see the semi-deserts as well as next to the green areas. Tusheti protected areas with nice towers there. And Pshavkhav Sureti, which has amazing landscape on another hand. Azbegin National Park, which is famous with its glaciers. Let me also show you one video shortly about these areas before I start presenting the project.
Breathe with all my chest for the first time. My journey was beginning and I was stepping into the new world. It's like a refugee from the everyday life. My mind was totally obsessed with the landscape, but I've never felt alone. Friends, people, travelers, everything was around me. It was just me and real history with all its enchanting glory. Just the most mesmerizing picture I have ever seen in my life. So realistic, I tried to listen close to the voice of mountains, voice of water, the voice of nature. Time will tell. I will come back here soon.
So, let's move to the project, to Martville Canyon. sustainable development project. So everything started a couple of years ago, from 2010, when population started visiting the area. But you know, due to this fact that this area had no status and population saw that there was no governing body of the area, it was quite polluted, and it was full of garbage and watermelon shells and cans, and everything was destroyed at this area. Also, you would find that there was a lot of facts of poaching and illegal fishing and hunting at this area. As a result of this, we saw the situation that almost the ecosystems was diminished. This is a project which has been the illustration how the situation absolutely changed in our country and for these areas. And due to this fact, this project has been nominated and being granted with the European Landscape Convention Award for its exemplary value and a source of inspiration. Just now, I want to show you the video how it looks like right now. Okay, and let me show you the photo how it looked like before the project. Sorry, there is some technical problem with the slide, I guess. Yes, thank you. So this is the photo that illustrates the situation of this area before the project has started and before we started implementing the initiatives at this area. As I said, this area has become popular from 2010 because it was really beautiful, but people did not appreciate the wealth of this area, and that's why it was used as in a very unsustainable manner. But afterwards, in 2013, we established protected area at this space. So it was still maybe we can ask for help in presentation. Oh, it works now. Okay, thank you. So, and after 2013, it was decided to establish protected areas at this space. However, there was still some misunderstanding with the locals because they did not really want to have an area where there would be posed some restrictions. There was a couple of negotiations and the considerations with local stakeholders. And at first stage, they were against of establishing protected areas because they were using the canyon for fishing, for hunting, and definitely it would reduce their income in that manner. However, Agency of Protected Areas has played a crucial role in communication with the locals. So what we did was that we wanted to restore the ecosystems of this area because the different ecosystems, flora and fauna, was almost disappeared at this area. We did our best to introduce the new methodologies in order to introduce new species in the area and to restore the ecosystem there. First, what we did is canyon was absolutely cleaned from the trashes and the bottles, which was a lot at these areas. On the second stage, we started the restoration of the habitats at the canyon. As I said, it was almost disappeared and there was no fish anymore in this canyon. Afterward, the infrastructure has been developed. You see the viewpoints and the administration building, the visitor center, as well as the bridges and overlooking platforms that have been arranged at these areas. So what we got as a result of the project is that population who have been moving from the village came back to the area. Before there was no working spaces, now a lot of people come back even from the capitals in order to start businesses at these areas. People start to understand that instead of fishing and illegal activities at these areas, now they can have ecotourism activities, which has become quite popular because tourists, locals and international ones, start coming at the area, and you will now see lots of buses and cars standing in the turn in the queue in order to go inside the canyon. One good case that this project has illustrated was that there were a lot of villagers who have been fishing illegally at this area, but we started communication with them. We made an agreement with them that if they would establish some kind of community or some kind of organization, we would give them the land of canyon for lease for a couple of years. And we offered them to have this service of boating. So now they are running the business of boating in this area. I can say that now these poachers are best rangers of this area because they will not allow somebody to fish illegally in this area, because they saw that after they introduced this service, now they have even much income rather than they had a couple of years ago. On the other hand, this project has a great impact in terms of ecosystems restorations. Now you will see a lot of fish populations in the canyon, and also you will notice the otter, which is quite unique for this kind of areas, and also the flora and fauna is flourished at this area. You will see, you saw in the video that it's absolutely clean, and you will not see any pollution or garbage at this area anymore. As a result, we saw that it could have a great impact in different directions. Also in growth of population, because a lot of people returned and started their economic activities there, starting from cafes, guest houses, restaurants. They making souvenirs, as well as eco-educational activities are carrying out, and population of the village is more and more involved in the activities. And in terms of economic growth, definitely I can show you on the slide that it has played a crucial impact in that direction. So here you see on the graph of the statistics that every year after the establishment of protected areas and after the project have been implemented, there have been a rapid growth on visitation and for this canyon. Of course, the 2020 have been the year of lack of visitors due to the COVID pandemic period. However, you see that in 2021, it has been easily restored and is almost 60% of 2019. The same is absolutely translated into economic figures as well, because the revenues of the local administration is also increased in parallel. But what is more important, the local population's revenues are increasing rapidly. We just made the last research in a couple of years ago, in 2017, when we had a great situation here that we saw that the local population's income has doubled and tripled in a very short time period, due to the fact that now this destination is one of the top destinations in Georgia. So for sure, if you all decide to come to Georgia, definitely I'd be really happy if you visit this area and see it with your own eyes. Well, thank you very much. This was very shortly about the presentation of this very nice and beautiful area of the country. Thanks a lot.
Merci Madame. Brève, mais très belle présentation. Bien argumentée et source d'espérance. Merci.
Alors, nous avons le grand plaisir également de vous remettre ce diplôme et nous avons vraiment apprécié votre présentation très belle.
Voilà. Donc maintenant, nous vous proposons une discussion globale, puisqu'on n'a pas eu l'occasion d'en faire jusqu'à maintenant. Et les deux présidents des ateliers vont me rejoindre pour qu'on puisse faire ces échanges. Donc, Jacques Stein, le président du jury, et puis Julien Transy, que vous connaissez bien. Je te laisse présider.
Bien, donc pardon. Comme vous l'avez vu dans le programme, on y arrive, une discussion est possible. Vous avez vu que les participants à cette discussion étaient très nombreux, en tout cas potentiellement, puisque vous en êtes tous. Donc, voilà. Moi, ce que je peux dire à la fin de ces journées, c'est que la revue de tous ces projets m'a aussi remis en mémoire nos 2 journées de travail de 2019. On a revu des choses dont on avait parlé à l'époque, qui nous avaient plu, qui nous avaient beaucoup plu, qui nous avaient mieux plu. Et donc, c'est très intéressant, en tout cas pour moi, de revoir tout cela et pour me rendre compte que ça continue, ça se prolonge, ça se poursuit. Alors voilà. Puisque discussion il y a, la discussion est ouverte. Si mes voisins veulent lancer cette discussion, je leur laisse la parole. Sinon, posez vos questions. Essayez, quand vous posez une question, de vous identifier et puis de dire à qui vous souhaitez poser la question. Voilà, la parole est à vous. Non.
Julien, tu lances la discussion.
Alors on pensait vous avoir frustré en supprimant les discussions des jours précédents. Voilà. Attendez, voilà un micro. Comme vous voulez.
Je voulais vous demander sur le titre, le thème okay, I will speak in English. It's better for me. Sorry. For the title of the convention of this year's Oral Space Specific Convention, the landscape as a reflection and project of civilization. I would like to ask if we could refer to civilization as a term which could be also eagerly represented in the title by the term culture, which is a more open term than the term civilization. Or whether civilization is again a term which could be interpreted quite openly. What I mean, for instance, speaking about Lake Karla, what the people had around Lake Karla shores before its drainage was a very interesting culture. It could even be argued that it was a sort of an indigenous culture, because it was a culture of indigenous practices which were in time they occurred, in my opinion, as I see it, in a mutual relationship and exchange between the lake and ecosystem dynamics and the people around it. So if we think about the Rio Declaration of 1992, where indigenous cultures are appreciated, and this is something that has been a direction that has been given in 1992, so it has been many, many years since then. I was really thinking about how us Europeans should, through the convention, open up to this input of the significance of cultures, which could be perhaps named as local civilization, to the convention. Thank you. Today we saw many, the dry stone walls, many examples of Pico or of Croatia have this quality. Thank you so much for listening to my question.
Je pense que Marie-Laure peut répondre à ça.
Merci pour la question, qui est très intéressante. Je crois que dans certaines régions ou dans certaines langues d'ailleurs, le mot civilisation et le mot culture sont deux mots qui veulent dire la même chose, qui sont pris l'un pour l'autre. Mais je crois que Maguelone est la mieux placée pour répondre à vos interrogations.
Nous avons cherché à trouver un intitulé pour cette double conférence qui soit inspirant, je peux dire. Et vous savez que dans la Convention, il y a les 4 volets, la dimension environnementale, premièrement, on peut dire, culturelle, sociale et économique. Et nous savons également que toutes les civilisations sont mortelles, malheureusement, et que si l'on voit le paysage dans le temps et dans le temps long, notre civilisation a une sorte de responsabilité par rapport au futur. Et c'était cette idée peut-être de donner un temps long à ce concept de paysage pour montrer qu'il dépassait les disciplines sectorielles en quelque sorte, que ce n'est pas une thématique qui appartient à une seule profession ou à un seul ministère peut-être, mais que chacun a un rôle à jouer. Et en droit, on parle beaucoup aussi d'équité intergénérationnelle, c'est-à-dire que les générations actuelles doivent transmettre aux générations futures quelque chose d'acceptable, ou de plus qu'acceptable si possible. Et donc, on voit en France, par exemple, chaque samedi ou à travers d'autres pays, tous ces jeunes qui manifestent pour ci, pour ça, le climat. Et peut-être que cette civilisation, en tant que concept plus vaste, qui intègre bien entendu la notion de culture, mais c'est une sorte de défi de responsabilité à nouveau de transmettre un petit peu ce cadre de vie, parce que le paysage c'est le cadre de vie de l'être humain, mais également le cadre de la vie des autres espèces. On oublie parfois qu'il y a la biodiversité, donc il y a l'homme au centre, bien sûr, de la Convention, on peut dire, mais c'est un jeu de mots, en fait, un raccourci, parce que l'homme n'est pas tout seul, et donc c'est un projet. C'est pour ça, peut-être, que le reflet, c'était, comme Carlo Ragazzi l'a dit, le paysage, finalement, c'est un mode de vie, c'est un savoir-vivre, mais également, ça devrait être un projet pour le futur. Donc, c'est un petit peu un jeu de mots que nous avions cherché à mettre, mais évidemment, c'est une question très intéressante à développer.
Alors, oui, le micro, oui.
J'ai prouvé a fare una domanda. Nous avons vu que les paysages, c'est très lié à le monde rural. Con quel système se raisonne con l'UE parce que la PAC avec un impact sur le paysage. La compétitivité du marché produit marginalisation et c'est un problème pour le paysage et les petites communautés. Merci.
Oui. Tu veux répondre? On ne répond pas.
C'est un constat plutôt constant.
Oui, bon.
Hello, hello. Hello, Michael Oldham. I just wanted to add something to the first two comments, the one from you and the one, and Magellan's response. Because I too felt that the title of this conference was very inspired. I thought it was very appropriate. And I was interested this morning when Isabel Ferrer gave a definition which went back to the 15th century of landscape, which linked terrain with community. I thought that was fascinating, really. But yesterday we were told by somebody that we shouldn't really confuse landscape, which was essentially a visual experience, with environment. And I found that really difficult. For me, landscape is indivisible from environment, culture, and heritage. It affects every aspect of our daily lives, and it's not simply where we are and what we see. It defines us by the way that we respond to our environment, and it makes us what we are. And this is very evident if one imagines the complex diversity of interaction between soils and climate and vegetation, cuisine, and the interaction of people with their environment, and how that separates in a way very clearly a Mediterranean culture from an Alpine culture. But the big problem for Europe, I think, is that 70% of people now live in towns and cities, and they are in a way separated from nature. And I'm not sure how that will play out in the next 100 years. It's an interesting reflection. Thank you.
Qui veut répondre? Qui, moi? Ah bon, c'est sympa.
Monsieur le Président.
Oui, ben, c'est vrai que les acceptions du paysage, évidemment, varient aussi au fil du temps. Enfin, on sait que le paysage, c'est quand même l'intégration de toute une série de trames, disons, de couches. Il y a la couche naturelle, évidemment, qui s'est développée au fil du temps depuis des millénaires. Et puis, il y a l'homme qui est venu s'installer. Et c'est l'intégration des deux qui donne nos paysages actuels. Donc, forcément, le paysage aussi doit être considéré comme un patrimoine parce qu'il n'y a pas de patrimoine s'il n'y a pas d'interaction entre le patrimoine et un titulaire de ce patrimoine, qui peut être un propriétaire, un gestionnaire, peu importe. Mais s'il n'y a pas des interactions entre les deux, le patrimoine n'existe pas non plus. Alors, c'est vrai que c'est très difficile de distinguer tous ces éléments les uns des autres. On a parlé d'environnement, on parle aussi de nature, biodiversité. La nature même de ces éléments est aussi parfois très différente, puisqu'on sait que les éléments qui constituent la biodiversité sont ce qu'on qualifie en latin de res nullius, donc de choses qui n'appartiennent à personne. Et donc il faut aussi concilier cette façon de voir les choses, de comment faire pour prendre en compte des éléments qui sont appropriés de façon sûre, claire, par des individus, des collectivités, et des éléments qui sont considérés comme n'appartenant à personne. Mais ils font tous partie du même paysage, et donc font tous partie du même patrimoine. Et ils font sans doute tous aussi partie de la même culture. Maintenant, je ne sais pas si on va résoudre le problème aujourd'hui. Je ne sais pas si mes voisins veulent ajouter quelque chose.
Peut-être juste dire que, évidemment, notre travail se fonde sur des mots, des définitions, mais les définitions sont des créations humaines également, et il y a les mots et l'interprétation, le bon sens, la compréhension des termes également qui est important. Et c'est vrai que lorsqu'on parle de nature, maintenant, c'est très difficile. J'ai travaillé quelques années pour une convention sur la nature. Toutes les zones protégées sont gérées maintenant. Il n'y a rien de complètement naturel. Et je crois que l'UNESCO avait écrit il y a quelques années un livre sur les zones non anthropisées où l'être humain n'est pas intervenu. Et je crois qu'après la publication du livre, il n'y en avait plus finalement, parce que tout le monde est allé visiter ces zones. Donc nous restons peut-être entre guillemets prisonniers de certains termes, comme le mot protection, conservation, et en fait tout est géré maintenant, la planète. Et lorsqu'on voit que l'être humain également va sur d'autres planètes, on peut s'interroger également, est-ce qu'il n'y a pas déjà l'impact de l'être humain sur certains territoires de l'espace extra-atmosphérique, et donc ce sont des notions et des concepts intéressants à analyser, à discuter, et tout texte juridique est une tentative en fait de progression, mais on ne doit pas rester, je pense, prisonnier de certains mots. Il y a également le bon sens, l'interprétation et l'évolution des termes qui sont importants et intéressants à voir.
Une autre intervention? Oui.
C'est juste un point, c'est surtout pour Maguelone que je voudrais poser une question, une réflexion. C'est vrai que Maguelone, vous avez, pendant tout ce temps-là que je vous suis, vous avez fait évoluer le paysage, la notion du paysage, les politiques du paysage. C'est un travail remarquable, vraiment remarquable. Et à travers ces conférences-là, on a un aperçu très riche des différents pays, des différentes politiques, des différents aspects de paysage, et souvent selon les cultures des différents pays, on voit une approche sur le paysage qui est différente les uns par rapport aux autres. Et je voudrais vous demander si vous avez songé au lendemain. C'est-à-dire, jusqu'à maintenant, c'était plus... c'était vraiment bien mieux qu'on attendait. Est-ce que vous avez un plan, un projet ou, bon, je sais pas moi, vous envisagez comment continuer sur cette idée de paysage, sur ces conférences, sur la politique, sur l'évolution générale du paysage? Est-ce qu'en tant que conseil de l'Europe, est-ce que vous avez une nouvelle vision, une nouvelle approche sur l'évolution du paysage? Voilà, c'est juste une réflexion qui m'est venue aujourd'hui à l'esprit.
Vous savez que l'intérêt des traités internationaux, c'est de s'inscrire dans le droit et dans les institutions. Et c'est ça qui donne la crédibilité, je peux dire, aux thématiques, que des gouvernements ont signé, ratifié un texte et s'engagent et créent des institutions qui permettent de faire fonctionner le travail. Et donc, il y a des conférences périodiques qui se réunissent, des comités directeurs, et l'Assemblée des gouvernements qui suit l'actualité avec les évolutions évidemment qui se présentent à nous, avec les changements climatiques, toutes ces questions urgentes se posent et décident d'un programme de travail et prennent en considération bien sûr les thématiques nouvelles. Et donc, cette procédure continue forcément, et donc les méthodes de travail demeurent, et c'est pour cela qu'il est important d'avoir ces rapports nationaux sur les thématiques, parce que tout cela est accessible aux différents ministères, aux autorités publiques, parce que ce sont les pouvoirs publics ont une grande responsabilité, parce que finalement tout peut découler de ces questions-là, et c'est important de développer ce travail qui est un travail institutionnel, je pense, d'abord juridique institutionnel, et les professions se reconnaissent tout à fait dans ce travail. Et je voudrais simplement dire que les travaux qui ont été faits les années dernières portaient sur l'intégration du paysage dans les politiques sectorielles. Et il y a eu un grand pas en avant avec cette question, parce que l'idée, c'était que, évidemment, il y a la discipline du paysage, mais également chaque discipline, que ce soit l'aménagement du territoire, l'urbanisme, l'agriculture et d'autres thématiques, s'approprie, entre guillemets, ou se préoccupent ou s'intéressent à la question du paysage dans leurs propres travaux, l'urbanisme, l'architecture, etc. Et donc, il y a eu des recommandations qui ont été faites à la dernière conférence sur, par exemple, urbanisme et paysage, paysage et agriculture. Et un texte très important, je pense, pour le futur aussi, c'est de lier le paysage au développement durable avec l'agenda 2030 des Nations Unies. Et il y a une recommandation qui propose aux collectivités locales et régionales qui le souhaitent de s'approprier, entre guillemets, cette question et de faire des sortes de chartes, mais le mot n'est pas est libre, en fait, des textes avec des partenaires qui s'engagent à se conformer à certains principes. Et donc les collectivités locales des différents gouvernements peuvent travailler sur ces principes. En fait, ce sont des principes, et développer le travail comme ils le souhaitent. Et cette recommandation a été adoptée par le Comité des ministres du Conseil de l'Europe. Donc le Comité des ministres, ce sont les représentants non seulement des ministères spécialisés qui sont et qui s'intéressent à nos thématiques en priorité, qui sont déjà convaincus, je peux dire, c'est-à-dire les ministères de l'Environnement et les ministères de la Culture, mais également les autres ministères, pour que ces ministères-là également s'intéressent. Et donc le Comité des ministres, ce sont les affaires étrangères. Donc à ce niveau-là, ces textes ont été adoptés, ce qui permet de consolider, disons, le travail pour le futur. et les Nations Unies travaillant sur cette perspective de développement durable, le paysage s'inscrit maintenant dans l'agenda politique, on peut dire, des Nations Unies par le biais de ce travail.
Oui, bonjour. Alors avant toute chose, je tenais à remercier l'ensemble des organisateurs et puis toutes les personnes qui ont pu intervenir pour nous livrer des expériences aussi inspirantes. De vous écouter les uns, les autres. Moi, j'ai beaucoup apprécié tout l'apport de la démarche paysagère qui est portée par la Convention du Conseil de l'Europe sur le paysage, y compris en faveur de sites remarquables, de sites exceptionnels. Et je m'interrogeais, donc c'est une question ouverte, à l'aune des 50 ans de l'anniversaire de la Convention du patrimoine mondial de l'UNESCO, est-ce que les travaux d'aujourd'hui qui reflètent bien la transmission, l'héritage, le patrimonial, ne pourraient pas être aussi servir d'inspiration aux prochains travaux d'une autre convention pour donner à voir que les travaux menés dans le cadre du paysage du quotidien sont aussi un grand bénéfice au service des sites remarquables et exceptionnels, et peut-être de donner à voir qu'il y a beaucoup moins de dichotomie et que ce n'est pas forcément l'exceptionnel qui nourrit qui fait exemplarité pour les autres paysages, mais c'est aussi ces paysages des quotidiens, cette créativité que l'on a ici, qui viendrait nourrir une autre dimension, là aussi internationale, de la même façon qu'on a pu opérer entre le paysage et le développement durable pour être inscrit à l'agenda des Nations Unies pour 2030. Donc voilà, c'est une idée qui galopait en vous écoutant et notamment au regard du thème de ces journées. En tout cas, pour la France, notre organisation administrative fonctionne. On a les services qui œuvrent dans le sens de la Convention du patrimoine mondial et de sa mise en œuvre pour la France, avec 2 ministères, le ministère pour le volet naturel, le ministère de l'Environnement, de l'Écologie, et le ministère de la Culture pour tous les aspects patrimoniaux culturels. Et pour la Convention du paysage, en fait, il s'agit du ministère, là aussi, de l'écologie, de l'environnement, suivant ses appellations. Et nous travaillons parfois trop en silo, malgré les tentatives davantage de transversalité, de se nourrir d'exemplarité. Et cette année, nous avons décidé que le thème de nos prochaines journées nationales du paysage porterait justement sur cette question de la démarche paysagère, du paysage et pas au seul titre des 5 attributs de la Convention du patrimoine mondial de l'UNESCO qui font valeur exceptionnelle, mais comme on l'a vu aujourd'hui, qui interroge sur l'amont, sur une candidature, sur le sens de la gestion, sur le sens de la prise en compte d'un territoire et finalement toute la force de nos travaux qui pourrait en irriguer d'autres et peut-être de construire davantage de transversalité et peut-être porter l'ensemble des dimensions du paysage qui sont soutenues au titre de la Convention du Conseil de l'Europe sur le paysage. J'espère.
Je pense que c'est l'idée de tous ces symposiums et de ces forums, hein, c'est de nourrir la réflexion pour aller vers un mieux. Alors on a parlé de transversalité et effectivement c'est sans doute là que le bas blesse en général, puisque le paysage est toujours parfois traité de manière verticale en fonction des pays, des régions. C'est le ministère de l'Environnement qui en charge le paysage, d'autres c'est le ministère de la Culture, d'autres c'est le ministère du Patrimoine. Et disons que les approches sont toujours orientées forcément par le contexte, le contexte philosophique à la limite de ces différentes institutions. Et donc ça, c'est une chose importante, c'est de faire en sorte qu'effectivement, cette transversalité se développe. D'ailleurs, sur le terrain, c'est la même chose. Quand on est à un point de vue et qu'on regarde un beau paysage, un beau panorama, combien y a-t-il de gestionnaires dans ce paysage? Il y a une multitude de gestionnaires. Donc on ne va pas pouvoir avancer à l'avenir en décidant quelque part dans un bureau comment gérer un territoire, alors que finalement, chaque individu dans ce paysage est un gestionnaire en puissance. Et donc, voilà, un bon gestionnaire ou un mauvais gestionnaire, c'est le résultat final qui donnera la direction. C'est pas Maguelone, si tu...
Je pense la même chose.
Bon, d'accord. Oui, pardon.
Si je peux rebondir. Ah,
Rebond.
vous m'entendez?
Oui, ça va venir.
Oui, je ne suis pas sûr que ça marche pour l'instant. Ça ne marche pas là? Oui, c'est bon. Oui, pour rebondir sur la remarque d'Émilie, que je trouve effectivement très pertinente, parce que il me semble qu'en France, depuis la mise en œuvre de la Convention européenne du paysage, on s'efforce de faire un lien entre les paysages dits exceptionnels et les paysages du quotidien, mais peut-être un peu trop souvent dans un seul sens, en considérant que les paysages exceptionnels peuvent servir de laboratoire d'expériences qui vont nourrir les expériences ou les démarches à mettre en œuvre dans les paysages du quotidien. Et moi qui ai eu la chance, comme je l'ai dit, de travailler sur ces questions de mise en œuvre de la Convention européenne du paysage en France et qui maintenant travaille plus spécifiquement sur des paysages protégés, considérés comme exceptionnels, j'ai effectivement la conviction que les travaux menés par la Convention à l'échelle du Conseil de l'Europe, mais dans chacun des différents pays, sur des paysages du quotidien, peuvent aussi être des expériences très inspirantes pour les paysages exceptionnels en eux-mêmes. Donc, très bonne chose d'entendre que, effectivement, les Journées nationales du paysage en France porteront sur cette dimension, mais je pense que ce serait aussi un travail qui pourrait être intéressant à conduire dans le cadre de prochains ateliers de la Convention européenne du paysage, pour valoriser son apport, y compris au bénéfice d'autres conventions internationales.
Oui, peut-être je voulais rajouter que c'est vrai, le mot ordinaire, pour moi, est un petit peu choquant, je peux dire. Parce qu'on dit que... Enfin, on peut penser que quelque chose est ordinaire tant qu'il n'a pas été considéré comme extraordinaire. Mais chaque portion de territoire devrait être considéré comme extraordinaire. Et souvent, il était extraordinaire, mais on l'a dégradé. Et on a vu aujourd'hui des présentations tellement magnifiques qui montrent que des paysages avaient besoin simplement d'être révélés comme étant extraordinaires. Et donc, parfois, c'est juste une question de révélation du fait que c'est extraordinaire, en fait. Hein. Et qu'il y a toujours c'est ça qui est intéressant dans ce travail, c'est qu'on peut revenir en arrière. On ne prend pas la carte postale de quelque chose qui est magnifique, mais on considère qu'il y a la possibilité de récupérer, de restaurer, de renaturaliser, tous les mots en recréer le lac Karla qui était extraordinaire comme présentation. Donc on voit que l'être humain est capable peut-être du pire mais aussi du meilleur et qu'on peut revenir en arrière et faire quelque chose de positif dans des endroits qui étaient abîmés et que l'être humain finalement, parce que lorsqu'on dit protéger, c'est protéger contre qui en fait? C'est une question qu'on peut se poser également. Protéger de qui et comment et par rapport à l'UNESCO, je peux dire qu'il y a quelques années, l'UNESCO avait voulu faire une convention mondiale sur le paysage et que malheureusement, cette initiative n'avait pas abouti parce qu'au niveau mondial, c'est vrai que c'est complexe. Et c'est vrai que quand on voit l'histoire de l'UNESCO, l'UNESCO a travaillé d'abord pour des sites exceptionnels, et c'était après le barrage d'Assouan en fait qu'il y a eu la création du patrimoine mondial. Et puis ça correspond à une évolution linéaire historique finalement. Il y a eu la reconnaissance de ces paysages ou de ces sites les plus extraordinaires au niveau mondial. Et puis maintenant, on voit que les plans de gestion de ces sites, chaque site doit avoir un plan de gestion. Donc, et cette idée se propage. Et à l'UNESCO, peut-être cette idée va se développer. Mais c'est vrai que lorsqu'on travaille au niveau mondial, c'est encore plus difficile parce qu'il y a beaucoup de pays. Mais c'est une évolution naturelle de la manière de travailler. Et peut-être que la Convention sur le patrimoine immatériel a déjà ouvert la voie à une évolution de cette conception de l'UNESCO et il y aura une troisième peut-être convention dans quelques années sur ces idées de paysage, de territoire, parce qu'en fait le paysage c'est l'interface du territoire et voilà, je ne sais pas, c'est une évolution lente des travaux et les idées cheminent finalement, il n'y a pas de limite à ces idées.
Merci. Paradoxalement, la crise sanitaire que nous avons vécue, enfin que nous vivons toujours d'ailleurs, la preuve c'est que nous sommes fort masqués, aura peut-être fait bouger les lignes dans mon pays. En tout cas, certains sites prestigieux, exceptionnels, ont tout simplement été complètement fermés au public. Avec le confinement, les gens se sont rués sur des sites qui étaient à proximité de chez eux, à un point tel qu'à un moment donné, la situation était complètement hors de contrôle. Et qu'il aura fallu fermer ces sites pour essayer de limiter les dégâts. Alors, bon, ça c'est une chose, mais la réaction à la suite de ça, c'est que les gestionnaires, les titulaires institutionnels, les collectivités, les ministères, etc., qui sont propriétaires parfois, ou les municipalités qui sont propriétaires de ces sites, ont dû commencer à réfléchir à des actions susceptibles de ramener un peu le citoyen sur terre et face à ses responsabilités de citoyen vis-à-vis de ces sites, vis-à-vis de ces paysages, vis-à-vis de ces écosystèmes. Et les réflexions ont démarré à beaucoup d'endroits sur ces sites prestigieux chez nous maintenant. Il y a des actions qui sont mises en place, qui commencent à être mises en place pour essayer de ne plus arriver à avoir ce type de problème, quoi. Mais ça au moins poussé à la réflexion. Oui.
Oui, Gilles Mühlhauser, donc de la délégation suisse. J'avais en fait juste 3 choses à dire, un commentaire, une question et un plaidoyer ou une recommandation. Le premier commentaire, donc en tant que Suisse et lauréat du 6e prix, je dois dire que j'ai été surtout impressionné par tous les projets des autres pays qui faisaient parler le terrain, donc plutôt les projets qui étaient en bottom-up, donc des projets qui partaient du terrain et où je pense que personne ne se pose la question de savoir si le paysage est ordinaire, si c'est un paysage. Les gens font, les gens le vivent, les gens le travaillent. Je crois que le projet italien, dans ce sens-là, est très exemplaire. Donc, quelque part, ça fait 35 ans que je travaille sur le paysage professionnellement et le mot paysage fait peur parce qu'il est complexe. Donc, mon plaidoyer, pour aller dans le sens de Maglone, c'est vrai qu'on a beaucoup d'expressions en français. D'ailleurs, on n'est que les francophones à s'exprimer pour le moment et les autres sont les bienvenus pour continuer le langage. Mais le vocabulaire du paysage, pour moi, il doit être raconté par les gens qui le vivent. Donc, il faudrait que la Convention commence à organiser quelque chose qui permet le plaidoyer par l'exemple et par les gens. Donc, tous les projets, à mon avis, qui sont en bottom-up devraient être les projets qu'on favorise, parce que, pour finir, je terminerai mon intervention par une question à la Convention ou à Maglone. Est-ce qu'on arrive aujourd'hui à faire une corrélation entre les pays qui ont une planification nationale ou une planification régionale? Est-ce qu'ils sont beaucoup plus soigneux de leur paysage que les pays qui ont une approche bottom-up avec les populations et qui, en fait, offrent des projets inspirants? J'ai l'impression que la corrélation, elle n'est pas claire pour moi et que l'avenir pour les générations futures sera beaucoup plus à varier le discours sur le paysage avec des exemples qui viennent du terrain et avec ceux qui le vivent. Voilà, je m'arrête là. Je ne sais pas si mes questions sont claires ou mon commentaire est clair, j'espère.
Alors peut-être je peux répondre et je peux dire que l'un n'empêche pas l'autre et que dans tous les pays, il y a des citoyens qui font du bottom-up, mais que si une convention a été créée, c'est parce que ça ne suffisait pas et qu'il fallait cautionner et donner de la crédibilité à ces personnes qui font du bottom-up parce que la tâche est trop grande et donc c'est vrai que dans l'absolu, ça aurait été mieux de ne pas avoir de convention du paysage. Parce que dans le passé, le paysage existait et on n'avait pas besoin de texte. Le paysage se faisait par les habitants. Et il y a eu cette convention parce que l'accélération des transformations était tellement brutale dans tous les domaines, dans le transport, les infrastructures, l'urbanisation, qu'il faut que les pouvoirs publics se préoccupent et se soucient de cette question et inscrivent cette préoccupation dans leur agenda politique, comme on dit. Et donc, il faut le soutien parce que sinon, les citoyens dépensent trop d'énergie à faire des recours en justice, à se fatiguer, je peux dire parfois, pour faire passer certains messages, et donc il faut leur faciliter la vie et les aider avec une reconnaissance au niveau politique. Et c'est pour cela que si les autorités nationales, mais aussi régionales, mais aussi locales, s'intéressent à ces questions-là, comme c'est le cas souvent maintenant des maires ou des associations de maires ou d'élus ou autres, alors là, la partie est gagnée, je pense, et cela s'inscrit durablement dans la conscience du mode de vie. Et c'est vrai, je pensais hier à un professeur italien un jour qui m'a dit pendant des siècles, on a fait des choses magnifiques, et en 2 générations, pas partout bien entendu, on a détruit des choses. Donc, mais cette réflexion, c'était il y a 20 ans. Hein. Donc peut-être que maintenant, on est dans une phase de reconscientisation de ces valeurs paysagères, et c'est important que les pouvoirs publics aident, en fait, soutiennent l'initiative des populations. Voilà.
Merci. Encore des questions, des réflexions, des remarques, des propositions, des suggestions? Non? Mes voisins n'ont plus rien à dire non plus? Enfin, pour le moment. Bon, ben alors, on va clore cette discussion, et en même temps, cette matinée, et donc cette dernière journée en chambre de ce symposium forum, pour nous préparer à aller nous promener au soleil. C'est bien ça? Alors, il y a sûrement des... Oui? D'accord. Oui, oui, bien sûr. Il y a encore ce point-là à l'ordre du jour, effectivement. Je ne l'ai pas sous les yeux. Donc, on s'en va. Oui. Très bien.
On regagne la place, non? Non?
Je sais pas. Il passe pour tout le monde.
Nous souvenir du programme. Alors, peut-être je vais dire quelques mots pour conclure. Et Madame Evgenia Layou, qui est notre personne avec qui nous avons vraiment travaillé pour cet événement. Alors, c'est très difficile de terminer cette réunion, tant elle était foisonnante d'idées et de projets. Et je pense qu'on a simplement fait un voyage à travers tous ces pays qui sont présents ici, et à chaque fois on se disait quel est le projet le plus beau, le plus extraordinaire, comme je disais, et c'est très difficile de choisir, et je crois que la beauté de ces projets, c'est tous ces projets présentés ensemble, c'est ça qui fait la valeur ajoutée. C'est pour ça que ce mot alliance est important, parce que c'est vraiment une consolidation de toutes ces expériences de chaque pays qui fait un bond vraiment spectaculaire en faveur de ce thème. Et je crois que toutes les personnes ici présentes, qu'elles viennent de tous les pays qui sont du nord, des pays nordiques, du sud, de l'est, de l'ouest, ont un langage commun. Et le mot paysage nous permet de penser, je pense, un petit peu de la même manière. Comme cela a été dit également, le paysage reflète, c'est pour cela qu'il y avait ce terme reflet de la civilisation, c'est un mode de vie finalement. C'est une façon de vivre. Si on considère que certaines choses ont de la valeur, on le reconnaît dans des textes juridiques, on aide les citoyens à s'orienter dans ce domaine-là. Donc c'est un grand projet, on peut dire, d'une société. Et c'est vrai qu'on voit des paysages qui reflètent des paysages de culture de l'attention, du soin d'une population, d'autres paysages qui sont des paysages où il y a mal vivre, je ne sais pas comment dire, où on se sent angoissé, stressé, et donc c'est important de considérer cela. Et il y a cette relation également émotionnelle entre l'émotionnel et le rationnel, comme cela a été dit, je crois, par Anestis Gourgiotis. Et puis l'intimité de l'homme et de la terre, tous ces concepts sont importants, mais finalement, ce qui est le plus important, c'est la force de l'action. Et je crois qu'à travers chaque projet, on a vu comment la volonté, finalement tout repose sur la volonté de certaines personnes, de certains individus, font la différence, et cette force de l'action permet de progresser et d'avancer pour que ces espaces de vie et ces espaces de la vie, parce qu'il y a la vie de l'être humain et la vie des autres espèces, permettent de faire l'objet d'une attention pour le futur. Je vous remercie, et donc Madame Evgenina Layou, et je termine en remerciant à nouveau le ministère de l'Environnement et des changements climatiques de la Grèce, de l'énergie, pardon, de cet accueil absolument magnifique. Vraiment, thank you so much. Nous n'avons pas de paroles pour dire comment nous avons été très heureux d'être présents ici, de votre accueil chaleureux et magnifique, remarquable. Merci à vous, et ces 2 journées sur les présentations des politiques de la Grèce et sur ces illustrations de tous ces pays présents ici ont été très, très riches et très importantes. Merci.
Θα ήθελα να χαιρετήσω αυτό το κλείσιμο αυτού του φόρουμ, ολοκληρώνοντας τις εργασίες σχετικά με την παρουσίαση των εθνικών επιλογών της 6ης Συνόδου Βραβείου Τοπίου του Συμβουλίου της Ευρώπης. Να συγχαρώ για μια φορά ακόμη την πρώτη διάκριση και όλες τις διακρίσεις που έλαβαν μέρος σε αυτή τη διαδικασία, για τις εξαιρετικές δουλειές που έχουν γίνει στο στόχο της προστασίας της διαχείρισης και του σχεδιασμού του τοπίου. Θα ήθελα να αναφερθώ στον πλούτο των εμπειριών που νομίζω ότι όλοι μαζί αποκομίσαμε στη διάρκεια αυτού του φόρουμ, καθώς γνωρίσαμε τοπία που συνιστούν εμβληματικά παραδείγματα δράσεων σχεδιασμού προστασίας διαχείρισης στο πλαίσιο της βιώσιμης ανάπτυξης, και σκέφτομαι το αποτέλεσμα από τις προσπάθειες από το μόχθο κάθε χώρας για την επίτευξη των παραπάνω στόχων, σε όποια από τις 3 κατευθύνσεις κι αν εστίασε, σε όποια κλίμακα κι αν υλοποιήθηκε, καθώς το μοιραζόμαστε, καθώς γίνεται κοινή εμπειρία, είμαστε βέβαιοι ότι συνιστά προβληματισμού, ότι αλλάζει τη σκέψη μας, ότι την εμπλουτίζει τον ορίζοντά μας για την ενίσχυση των πολιτικών για το τοπίο μας, για τα τοπία μας, και νομίζω μετά από κάθε τέτοια πολύ θερμή συνάντηση, πολύ εξαιρετική συνάντηση και συμμετοχή όλων, νομίζω ότι αυτό που μένει σαν αποτέλεσμα και σαν υπόσχεση ως την επόμενη συνάντηση είναι ότι θα επιμείνουμε να υποστηρίζουμε τα τοπία, το τοπίο, θα επιμείνουμε να υποστηρίζουμε το τοπίο σαν ταυτόσιμη υλοποίηση της ανθρώπινης ευημερίας και σαν αυτό, μέχρι εδώ, στο στόχο της υλοποίησης της ανθρώπινης ευημερίας. Όπως και αν αυτή ερμηνεύεται μέσα στο περιβάλλον διαβίωσης, από τον καθένα και από όλους μας. Σας ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ. Ήταν πολύ σημαντική και είναι η παρουσία σας εδώ και για την Ελλάδα και πιστεύω και για όλους μας. Ευχαριστώ.
one last notice. At 2 o'clock, we will have the buses waiting for us, so about a quarter before. I think that we will start at 2 o'clock, so we can meet at 11:45. We're going to our tour to Meteora, where we're going to have a guide. And then, while we're returning, we will stop to have a dinner and spend a little time together. So thank you all, and see you soon.